for more NBA playoff action. And today, it's myself and Ryan once again breaking down another one-game slate. And this series and a game that I'm really, really excited about. Phoenix Suns, Denver Nuggets. This is really a terrific series. This is probably the best matchup we've seen throughout the playoffs. So I'm excited to break it down, excited to talk about tonight's Showdown contest. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and shout out to Prize Picks, who are sponsoring our show today. We'll be talking more about them as we go on. Ryan, what's happening, man? How's your weekend been going?
It's going great. It's kind of gloomy here in the Midwest, but that's just a normal Saturday in April over here. But I want to say congratulations to you. First time with first place with our CFL last night. Taking home a nice little $4,000. Hopefully you already spent all that money back in the prop betting streets with the San Diego and San Francisco game popping off. But going to the series, I mean, this is as good as a matchup as it gets. If the NBA didn't do playoffs by conferences, this could easily been a finals matchup. And we were pretty blessed to get this in the second round. I mean, this has arguably like four of my favorite players in the NBA just going head to head. It's going to be a great series. We were talking about before, I have no idea who's going to win this series. I have a lot of money tied up to Phoenix Suns futures. So in terms of a financial perspective, I would love for Phoenix Suns to pull it off. But I'm a big Nuggets fan. I really enjoy Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, what Michael Porter has done this season, and kind of what Mike Malone has just done with this 8-man rotation in the playoffs. So I'm thrilled to see this matchup, hoping for 7 games, hoping for a ton of overtimes, just hoping for a bunch of good brand of basketball.
Yeah, and that's what I'm expecting. Game one, we've got Denver as a slight favorite by 3.5 points. And I think this is a very, very tight series. And like you, Ryan, I'm invested in the Phoenix Suns. It's a team that I've had a pretty decent hunch that Kevin Durant was going to be traded there. So I bet them to win the Western Conference and the NBA Finals slightly before the trade happened. I think 1 or 2 days before it was. And I had also posted about it on Twitter. So it's a team I have rooting interest in. But at the same time, too, if I'm being realistic, I don't think the Nuggets should be as big of underdogs for the series as they are. And the main reason being because they have home court advantage. This is the single biggest home court advantage that we have in the NBA is Denver. So I also have to look like game one, Denver's favored by 3.5 points. 4 of the 7 games are going to be played in Denver. So if I had to bet aside, just considering the current odds, I would be betting Denver to win the series, but I have my Suns futures and I'm just going to be riding them out and hope the Suns end up winning here. And it's going to be fun. If you had to pick a team, I know like myself, you are invested in the Suns, but gun to your head, if you had to pick a side, you going with the Nuggets or the Suns for the series?
I'm going to go with the Suns. I just think the offensive growth and defensive ability of Devin Booker in these playoffs have been very impressive. Arguably, if it weren't for Jimmy Butler going full-on virtuoso against the Milwaukee series, Devin Booker has had the best two-way playoff performance thus far in the series. So D-Book has been great. Kevin Durant's still on this team. I'm going to go with the Suns. And it's going to come down, I think, whatever home team, whichever home team is going to be first to lose their game. Like if the Nuggets are going to lose tonight, I think Phoenix goes on to win. And if Phoenix loses if the Nuggets go 2-0 and Phoenix loses a home game at Phoenix, I think Denver goes on it. So whatever home team cracks at home first is going to end up losing the series. It's kind of how close it's going to come down to, in my opinion.
I'm pretty curious to see what the audience thinks on this. By chance, Jacob, do you know how to make a poll in YouTube chat? If you do, I can't do it from my account, but if you know how to do it and you're able to, let's get a poll going. Who do you think is going to win the series? Denver Nuggets, Phoenix Suns. I'm just curious to see which way you guys are voting. And I think it should be pretty close, but I think it'll also give us an idea of where the just public sentiment is at heading into the series. And already I see right here, Travis Meyer, strong take. Denver has a 0% chance to win the series, according to Travis. A little bit strong for me, saying 0% chance. It's going to be a close one. I could see it going either way. And injuries have also played a really big role in the playoffs. And, shortly we're going to be getting into talking about this one-game slate and the best options on DraftKings and FanDuel for Phoenix and Denver. But, we've got an hour and we could talk about some other aspects that are impacting basketball as well and some betting angles. What'd you make of the Joel Embiid news, Ryan?
It's sad, man. You never want to see these superstar players, let alone players in general, get hurt. Joel Embiid has been absolutely an offensive menace this season. Yeah, obviously he's going to be most likely league MVP, and Embiid getting hurt is just a disaster, man. You want both teams to be healthy. Boston's just given Philly the business over the last couple 4 or 5 years. And I'm pretty sure Embiid was looking forward to the matchup. And man, it seems like Embiid's going to miss the series. That's how bad this injury sounds based on Shams Charania's tweet earlier this afternoon. So I hope he can play. It'll be great for basketball fans. And man, Boston's probably should be thrilled not potentially get a matchup without Embiid. Like, look, B-ball Paul Reed is a nice story and all, but there's no way he's making a difference against this Boston team.
I would like to implore the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid won MVP this year. I know it's not official, but he did. We have some early returns on the voting results. Joel Embiid won MVP of the season. Can you just be a little bit lax on his minutes in his games played next year? Because they have run him into the ground the last 2 seasons in the final month and a half of the season to try to win him that MVP. To me, I feel like the 76ers have valued Embiid winning an MVP over the team winning a championship. And I really think it's come at the detriment of his health because he's played back-to-backs down the stretch of the season. He's played big minutes in meaningless games, all for the purpose of him winning an MVP. And they're just not fresh heading into the playoffs. And I know that last year there was some fluke involved because he did get elbowed in the face and broken orbital bone, but also he had a thumb injury that he suffered towards the tail end of the regular season. That impacted him in the playoffs. So just lighten up on the workload of Embiid a little bit down the regular season. Give him a chance to be healthy in the playoffs. And also, he needs to play a little bit less like a maniac. He can't be, 7 feet tall, 280 pounds and diving on the floor for every single loose ball. I do think there's preventative things that can be done here to make him a little bit more likely to stay healthy. But as things go right now, I have to favor the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals. I did bet them to win the Eastern Conference when we first got word that Joel Embiid wasn't totally healthy. So I'm sitting on the Celtics plus 180 to win the East. And I think just because of the path to the finals, I would consider Boston to be the most likely team to win it all right now. Is that reasonable to you?
Yeah, I'm still very bullish on this Phoenix Suns team. I think Monty Williams, there's a couple things I didn't like what Monty Williams did in the first round. He's been kind of an old school coach, just kind of like doesn't want to experiment, trying out different rotations here and there. And I hope that doesn't go back to bite him. Greg, I'm gonna be honest with you. Joe Mazzulla had his turned up his coaching the last 4 or 5 minutes of that Atlanta game, but I have a feeling that Joe Mazzulla is going to be the reason why Boston doesn't win the finals or potentially doesn't get to the finals if somehow Embiid comes back. But he's been so bad. I don't think he can be that bad and win an NBA Finals. That's just how poorly I think of Joe Mazzulla right
now. Yeah, and by the way, the reason that I say that I don't even think the Celtics are considerably better than the Suns or the Nuggets. It's really just that they're playing a 76ers team that doesn't have Joel Embiid. Then they're going to be playing the winner of the Heat of the Knicks and the Heat. So just considering their path to the finals, it's so much easier than the other teams I consider the top teams. It just makes them probability-wise a little bit more likely to win.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I think it seems more likely Boston's going to have a clearer path to the NBA Finals, and that certainly can help them just take it all down. And we'll see. We'll see. Jimmy Butler is just on a whole nother mission, and if he's going to go ahead and take down the Knicks on his own without Randall, Jimmy Butler is no easy task going to take down in the conference finals. Eric Spoelstra is as good of as coach as gets.
And we've got some early poll results so far just to show you how split everybody is. Of the votes we've gotten, 52% of the people on the Nuggets, 48% on the Suns. Not all that surprising me. I think it's going to be a tight series. Looking forward to watching it. And we've got some questions from you guys starting to come in. So super chats, if you guys want to leave those, we'll be answering them. If you're in Discord and you're one of the Stokastic Plus Platinum members watching the show, one of the perks is you're in our Discord channel. You could at me, you'll be answering your questions. So let's start talking about the single game slate, talking about DraftKings, the Showdown contest, FanDuel, their single game slate. First question we have here. Michael McKinney has left us a super chat. We appreciate you, Michael. He wants to know favorite star and favorite pro spot on FanDuel. So let's address the first part of this to start with. And he wants to know who is our favorite star. And keep in mind, he's not talking about the MVP spot. He wants to know who our favorite star option is on FanDuel tonight, Ryan. Who's your choice there?
Well, if you're not playing Nikola Jokic in the MVP spot, I highly suggest you to fill up the star spot with Nikola Jokic at that price tag at $17K. And Jokic is going to project to be outstanding, nearing 60 fantasy points. He could certainly play 40-plus minutes, high 30s, barring any foul trouble. I expect for a great performance from Jokic in this series. He's done it. He's matched up well against Aiden in the past. Aiden does step up a little bit against this Jokic matchup. Keep in mind, this team did play each other in the 2021 second round matchup where Chris Paul just carried the Suns on his back as pretty much they kept dropping Jokic and they were just betting on Chris Paul just not to knock down the mid-range jumper. It's going to be interesting to see what Mike Malone does as a coaching strategy, but I think Jokic seems most likely, if you're not going to play him at MVP, play him in star. And then I'm going to like Kevin Durant. I think we might get some Kevin Durant at the 5 minutes if Biyombo doesn't play the rotation much. If you think about it, DeAndre Jordan barely has played backup 5 minutes. It's been a lot of Jeff Green. So we might see fewer Bismack Biyombo minutes. Therefore, I'm potentially going to see more Kevin Durant minutes at the 5. So I like going to KD at the star option. And keep in mind, Deb. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to read off some of our ownership projections right now. And if you look at what we have for ownership, if you're playing Jokic in the star spot as opposed to the MVP, that is one way to build a somewhat contrarian lineup because Jokic is projected for 40% MVP ownership right now. And if you look at our star ownership, it is a little bit spread out. Jokic picking up some at 16%, got Chris Paul at 15%, Booker 17%, Jamal Murray 18%, Durant 19%. So that really takes up most of the ownership at the star spot. Nobody else really picking up too much, eating at 8%. Let's talk about the pro spot, because that's the other part of Michael McKinney's question. Who's your favorite player to roster in the pro spot? I do think this is one of the more interesting ways to get contrarian on FanDuel is some of the pro options. Number one, do you agree with this is a reasonable way to get contrarian is play some of these guys that are projected for sub 10% ownership in the pro spot? And then is there a contrarian option you like there, or do you like going chalky at the pro spot?
So yeah, I think the pro spot is usually where you can get a little different. Last night we saw D'Angelo. I believe D'Angelo also got up to the star spot as he was magnificent in the closeout game for the Lakers. So it's worth taking some chances who don't project as well, who have a high range of outcomes. And I think for me, on this type of slate, one guy from Denver who I think is going to be needed for his defensive purposes and ability just to stay on the court to guard potentially Booker and KD, as I believe Monty Williams is just going to try to switch Denver to death, is Aaron Gordon. I like going to him at the pro spot. And I think DeAndre Ayton on the Phoenix side of things makes a lot of sense as well. I think DeAndre Ayton's going to be asked to pretty much match every Jokic minute. And with that being said, I think like in the previous series, we saw the Clippers go maybe a tad small at times where Ayton lost a few minutes. And then I think Ayton's going to have to play mid-30s minutes, high 30s. He's been playing a little bit around to the low to mid-30s in the last series. I think that goes up a couple minutes in this series against the Jokic matchup.
Yep, I think that all totally makes sense. And pro spot, no real crazy chalk there. Ayton is the most popular, but that is only at 17.6% projected ownership. So nothing really there that's insanely popular at the pro spot. And I'm sure as we go along, we'll find some more contrarian options we like as well. I love seeing the super chat here from Avi Schreier. Thanks for the advice yesterday. Almost took down first place in the $15 100K. Had Roddy instead of Lyles for 11th out of 23K entries. And I think I erased that lineup. Had it tilted, but also feel helpful. Well, anything you get close to winning still seems like you had a good night, finish towards the top of GPPs. Good to see that. So nice hit there, Avi. And let's also go into Discord to see if we have any questions in there. Juan Soto and Xander Bogaerts, back-to-back homers. This game is the absolute nuts.
Pants off.
Absolute pants off night. Absolute. There's been.
I wish they would play every game in Mexico City. It'd be so much fun. Just like it'd be like Mario Baseball in real life. Then.
So this is the equivalent of, because I had people message me because people were confused why the total was so high. And this baseball game, if you guys aren't aware, DraftKings opened the total at 8.5 runs. It got bet up to 15.5. I have never seen a line get bet that heavily before. And the score right now is 8-8 or is it 8-7? It is. Yeah, the score right now is 8-7 in the fourth inning. So this game, this is not just that they're playing in like a little league ballpark. They're playing in a little league ballpark at altitude. So the ball is just flying. It's like 320 feet defense. It's the dumbest thing ever. There's no reason a professional baseball game should be played here. But if you guys haven't checked out the MLB and NBA Bet Pro tools that we have, there was a million bets they're rating out as plus EV for this game. And already a bunch of them have cashed. So it has been a super profitable game to bet. And while we're on that, I think just because to celebrate some of those wins that have hit for baseball, let's look at some of our best projected props for Prize Picks, Ryan, because we're sponsored by Prize Picks today, and we've got projections for it. We've got them in BetPro. We've also got our Pick'em Pro package. So if you guys are playing or just playing DFS in a state where you can't bet on sports, there are still sites like Prize Picks, No House Advantage, Underdog that have props that you could play over there. We've got a Pick'em Pro package where we take our projections and we apply them to those Pick'em sites, and you get access to it for the first time you're signing up, less than $5. So let's look at some of the Prize Picks props that are projecting well for today. And I will add in as a caveat to this, there's not an abundance of NBA props just because it's only a one-game slate, but still, there are some things to find here. And the number one that stands out to me, Nikola Jokic, over 9 assists. So this is a guy who averaged well over 9 assists in the regular season, and now we're going to see him play more minutes in the playoffs. These are the spots that I'd like to attack. When I see a prop that's fairly similar to what we would normally see from a player's prop line in the regular season, and now we also think they are playing extra minutes in the playoffs, which, Jokic played like 33 and a half minutes per game in the regular season. I think he gets close to 40 per game in this series. We have Jokic projected for 10 and a half assists. I like the over on 9 assists. Ryan, do you like the over on 9 assists for Jokic? And is there anything else that stands out to you on Prize Picks?
Oh, yeah, let's ride. Let's ride with an over 9 assists today for Jokic. I'm going to step in some with our data team. We expect that to win 59% of the time. Over 9 makes a lot of sense to start that Prize Picks card with you. I'm going to follow up with you. It's going to be a really interesting bit. I want to hear what you think about the situation today. I'm also going to take the under on Torrey Craig's points of 7.5. The reason why I bring this up is I strongly believe Monty Williams should start Josh Okogie for the Jamal Murray matchup. And it wouldn't shock me if Okogie is going to be in the starting lineup. Okogie played 30-plus minutes last time. Craig's minutes came down. Craig was outstanding the first couple games where he got hot from the outside. And I think we might see us changing in the starting lineup, potentially, if we haven't got that yet, where Craig goes to the bench and Okogie will start. So I like going the under at 7.5 for Torrey Craig as well. And going to be pretty much already our data team kind of agrees with that. Craig might see reduced minutes based on our data team as well.
Yeah, a handful of ones. And actually, I was kind of surprised that we even have as many that are projecting decently as they do for a one-game slate. I would say tread cautiously and don't go crazy betting all the props for the one game because you never know. Blowouts could happen. It could kind of skew some stuff. But if you guys want more action over on Prize Picks, do sign up for our Pick'em Pro package. Less than $5 when you use the link below and sign up for the first time. And if you're signing up at Prize Picks for the first time, use our promo code because that is not only going to get you, or the link below, because that is not only going to get you up to $100 bonus on your first deposit, but also 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. So access to all of our DFS projections for everything. We've got all the DFS sports covered, and you get 1 month free access to that when you sign up at Prize Picks using the link below. Some more questions coming in via the super chats. Rajal Patel, Rinpak is the GOAT, making Indians proud.
I appreciate that. Just trying to add some more color to the stream. As you know, our streams kind of lack that at times. So here, just providing some color.
Are you saying I lack color? I'm maybe the whitest human being on the planet, potentially. But we do have.
Have you seen our cast of characters?
Yeah, we have the thing. It's not just that we have white people like myself. It's that we have white people who've never seen sunlight before. And that's really the category I fall into. Jacob lives out west. He seems like he's kind of in my category as well. We've got a aggressively white group of people here. So, Brajal, thank you for shouting out Rinpak, and we do appreciate him joining us here. Here is a super chat from Junis Noseja. I hope I pronounced that correct. I gave it my best here. Do you know what that currency is?
No. I was trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out as well.
It's Filipino dollars, I believe.
It looked to me like 137 and a half hammers based on the
yeah, I believe it's Filipino dollars.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think that's Filipino.
Never seen that before, but I appreciate the super chat there, Junis, and he's saying, I'm having a hard time playing cash games this playoffs, unlike with regular games. In general, what are the strategies during DFS playoff cash games? So, Ryan, how would you say that cash games should be approached differently in the playoffs compared to the regular season?
They're usually shouldn't be approached that much differently. I think what you should mentally prepare yourself is for the extreme volatility to increase based on how minutes and rotations change quite drastically throughout playoff series. So that could be a reason why. And also, it's a small sample size. We've only been through one round. I wouldn't necessarily change my process for cash games or head to heads. I would just ride with our projections and more times than not, roll out what's coming up in the optimal, giving your potential flexibility if there's going to be potential late swap that's going to happen, if there's any news going to break. But I necessarily wouldn't change up your process. I haven't been playing playoff cash games. I tend not to, but I wouldn't tweak it too much at all, really, compared to regular season. Greg, do you have a certain take?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's going to be different about the regular season compared to the playoffs is you're not going to get these surefire value plays, right? You're not going to get this guy who's 3K, moves into the starting lineup because a star player is resting. We don't get those scenarios. But what I would say, though, is do try to follow the ownership. If you're looking at our projections, and let me pull up, at least for today, the ownership projections and just kind of give an example. And it could also be fairly difficult sometimes to build, cash game odds for a 1-game slate, but follow the ownership. If you're in between two players, just play whoever's most popular, and you're going to be able to cancel out a good amount of the field just by playing some of the chalky options. So like for today, play Nikola Jokic in your cash game, play him in the MVP spot or play him in the captain spot. So if you're playing on FanDuel, right, we've got Nikola Jokic projected for 40% MVP ownership. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up coming in more popular than that, ultimately the MVP spot. Don't overthink things like this. You just play Jokic in the MVP. And then I would say, like, all right, play Kevin Durant in the star spot and then kind of build around from there. That's the way I would approach these games, is really try to follow the ownership. If there's a cheap guy who maybe you're unsure about, but he's expected to be 50% owned, just go out and play him in the playoffs.
No, I think that's, you pretty much nailed it there. And the playoffs are always been very, very interesting for NBA DFS, but based on how our data team's been crushing it and behind the scenes, I mean, you, Steve Buzzard, Tom, Eddie, just like I think are combined to rack up like near $500,000 over the last week or two.
It feels like more than that. Feels like more. I know, like, so last night when I won one of the GPPs and I had the same exact lineup as Steve, was like, I have to be doing something right if I played one lineup that's the same as what Steve played, and we were the only two with that one in that contest. So we got another super chat here from Brajal Patel, and Brajal, you don't have to give me props just because you gave Ryan props. It's okay. I know that he can't super chat and congratulate me for being Indian. I mean, we could get a Jewish shout out. I do have my hair growing a little bit longer, which makes it a little bit more apparent, but. Got Brajal saying, Greg, you are the GOAT of futures betting, making America proud. There we go. I appreciate that as well. Thank you for the super chats there, Brajal. And by the way, Brajal, if you have a question related to DFS you want to ask us, you don't have to leave another super chat. Just throw it into the YouTube chat and I'll answer at this point, because a couple super chats there and they are definitely appreciated. Let me check to make sure that there wasn't anything else that I missed here, but it looks like we got to these super chats. And now let me check our Discord channel as well. And then we actually haven't really talked about DraftKings yet because the questions we've gotten have been for FanDuel. But yeah, we actually got a bunch of questions coming into Discord. So love to see the engagement. DraftKings wants to know, who is our favorite single entry captain for DraftKings? So Ryan, if you were building one lineup for single entry, who would you go with in the captain spot on DK?
I'm gonna go with Jamal Murray. I like going to Jamal Murray at that price tag. I feel like we are so in tune to regular season Jamal Murray, kind of the season back, being limited, progressing, and now he's playing around 40 minutes, and I think the price tag is pretty much there. I think slowly over this series, if he continues to play around 40 minutes, he's played 41 the last couple games. I like going to Jamal Murray. There have been games where he's been the lead usage guy over Jokic at times, so that can certainly happen. And there are lineups where you can get in Jamal Murray at the captain spot and Nikola Jokic in the utility, and a couple good starters on the rest of the starters among the Nuggets and Suns, and your lineup looks pretty solid where you're not tying up too much salary to potentially Nikola Jokic.
So I have an answer. This is my favorite contrarian captain on DraftKings today. And, DraftKings, the MVP, the DraftKings, the 1.5x spot is so much different on DraftKings compared to how we view it on FanDuel because of the salary difference and how that works. I really think this is a good spot to go to Michael Porter Jr. at low ownership because it's giving us a lot of salary savings, and it's hard to find salary savings for this game. I think this is one of the more reasonable ways to do it. You're getting a good price discount on Michael Porter Jr. He's $6,800 in the utility spot, and he's projected for well under 10% ownership as a captain on DraftKings. So a bunch of guys coming in more popular than him. I like the salary savings he offers, and there's a ceiling there. We've seen Michael Porter Jr. have some really good shooting games in the playoffs. In the first round against Minnesota Timberwolves, he did have 2 games where he scored north of 40 fantasy points. We've seen that kind of upside from him in the past as well. And it seems like people aren't really willing to go there. So give me Michael Porter Jr. I think that's a good contrarian option. And that's kind of what I'm looking for in a single entry tournament where I do expect a lot of the field is going to be playing Nikola Jokic in single entry. I want to go a little bit different. And Michael Porter Jr. is a way to go there. Is he somebody you have interest in for the captain?
I actually don't. I have some interest, but I'm very, very concerned with what Mike Malone might do with his minutes. We know the whole history between Malone and Michael Porter Jr. So I think I would disagree with you a little bit here because I think there is a pretty good chance where Porter Jr. could get benched. And I think Monty Williams is going to attack Porter Jr. on isolations and just attack him. And that's going to be the case. We're going to see more Bruce Brown Jr. than Michael Porter Jr. just because Bruce Brown Jr. is more versatile on the defensive end of things. Now, look, if Porter Jr. is going to get hot from the outside, there's no taking him off. He's as good as he gets from catch and shoot for 3. He's gunning it off those Jokic assists. But I am concerned where I just don't think those ceiling games from Porter Jr. are as likely just because I think Monty Williams is going to draw up game plans for him to get drove off the court in terms of just his defensive IQ is still a bit poor. It's improved quite a bit over the last couple of years. But like you said, what's going in favor for him is $6,800. And he comes in one of the cheaper guys with a ton of upside, like you said. But I'm still concerned about him getting to that upside consistently in this series.
Yeah, and we'll see what the minutes look like for him because there is a chance that just poor defense, he gets run off the court by Kevin Durant, and maybe they go a different way. But I'm just looking at the upside there. I think it's reasonable for us to have different opinions on it because if we didn't have different opinions on everything, well, then everybody would be playing the same lineups in every single GPP there. So totally reasonable.
That's my biggest. It's going to sound very contradicted. That's my biggest, I guess, DFS content across what we do. I think a lot of people just agree with each other way too much because the data indicates you to go one way, and I think people are a little too scared to make claims against some data where sometimes there's some noise in data. That's my take.
Yeah, I think that we should start. Well, I disagree with a lot of things on Eric, but also just about like basic life. Like, should you be shaving your eyebrows on shows? Should you be eating chalk, like physically eating chalk? I tend to say no. He says yes, and that's probably why I have a bigger following than him. Some more questions. Some more questions coming in from our Discord channel. This next one here is coming from the Black Mamba 81 wants to know who are we getting to for the captain spot. We just talked about that a little bit before. We talked about some contrarian plays. As far as large field tournaments, though, if we're separating ourselves from single entry, Nikola Jokic is still the captain I get the most exposure to. Who's the one captain you get the most of in DraftKings in large field tournaments?
In DraftKings, it's going to go to the guy who I was indicating earlier. Getting a little bit of Jamal Murray, a little bit more than I expected. So I'm trying to fine tune a little bit of things based on this last run of lineups and sims here. So I'm just waiting on this potential Kogi Torrey Craig situation where that will definitely change up a little bit, but not too much, as I already have a Kogi projected for more minutes and slightly above projection. But yeah, it's going to be Jamal Murray, getting a little bit more of Jamal Murray, but it's very identical to Nikola Jokic at this moment.
Now, the next question that we have in here is from Trouble35. Trouble says, since we're missing out with no tiers, unfortunately, no tiers for the one-game slates. I think they could still find some fun ways to run tiers contests, but unfortunately, we don't have those. But Trouble35, since we're missing out with no tiers, is there a 3-point made ladder that you like on FanDuel? I'm not prepared for that off the top of my head.
Can we speed dial Aton real quick?
Yeah. Aton will give us he'll give us a ladder and he'll give us a 15-leg same game parlay for this. If I had, let me check what the odds are. Because off the top of my head, if I had to pick somebody, it would be Michael Porter Jr. I just have to see what the odds are on him.
And with that being said, shout out producer Jacob letting us know Josh Okogie will be in the starting lineup tonight for game one against the Nuggets. So kind of in tune with what we were kind of thinking there.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, with Okogie starting, do not expect this guy to take double-digit shot attempts. He's there for his defensive purposes, hard closeouts, some rebounding there. He also should not be the guy taking a bunch of shots on this team, only if he's open. Sometimes I've seen the ability of him just to think he's him. He's certainly not. So he should just stay in his lane, play some good D, and the Suns will be just fine.
Now we've and I agree with you. He's not him, but he's a guy. He's a guy, and there's nothing wrong with being a guy. Is he a guy that we want to play as a value option today? Because he is currently, let's see, his price point is $4,400 in the utility on DraftKings. And then for FanDuel, the price point on Josh Okogie is $7,000. Do you view him as a good value option on both sites now that we know that he's starting?
Do I think he's a good value option in both sides? He's okay. I know Okogie had that insane run around the trade deadline in February, but we've had 4 or 5 years of this guy just being a very mediocre fantasy producer. And I think people will kind of flock to him here. And I'm not getting that much of him as is right now. Like if Okogie comes in at $5,400 in the utility spot over there on DraftKings, as ridiculous as it sounds, I'd rather take Bruce Brown Jr. off the bench than Okogie. I feel like Bruce Brown Jr. seems pretty locked and loaded for anywhere between 24 minutes and all the way to low 30s minutes, depending on foul trouble and defensive play for Michael Porter Jr. And he's been being able to handle the ball. And I think Bruce Brown Jr. is just raw points is just obviously projects better than him. So I'm not getting much to Okogie, but don't get yourself fooled. Okogie can go 4 or 4 from 3 and have that outlier game. And I'll be proceeded to be pissed off if that happens, but he's more of like a minutes play and you're really just kind of like a last man in. He's not a priority for me whatsoever.
So I was listening while you were talking, but I was also looking through the FanDuel odds because we got that question from Trouble who wants to know a 3-point made ladder. I was looking at the odds for Michael Porter Jr. just because if we're talking about volatility and just the upside of his threes, I thought it could be MPJ, but it's super juice. Like over 2.5 threes from him is -148. And then you're not getting great odds even for him to make 4+ threes. The odds on Michael Porter Jr. to make 4 more threes is +190 today. So it's pretty hard.
What is it for Jamal Murray?
+150. Like the odds are not great.
And then let's talk about KD or Kevin Durant.
Durant is +410. Booker's +300. No, I don't really think any of these are great odds. And sometimes Trouble, the best bet you can make is the one you don't place. And if you want to just do one for fun, I guess you go after Kevin Durant because he's the longest odds there to make 4+ on FanDuel. And we know that Kevin Durant can be a lethal scorer, but his 3-point shooting volume has not been maybe as high as a lot of people would think this year. So my best advice would be to stay away from that. If you absolutely have to pick somebody, just throwing in a recreational bet, then I'll say you go with Kevin Durant there. The next question that we have in here is coming from King Yusuf. King wants to know, who's your favorite DK utility play for under 4,000? All right, under 4,000.
Under 4,000 utility play?
Yes.
So guys who are coming in there, 3,200 campaign, 1,400 Landry Shamet, guys who I think are in the rotation. This doesn't mean you can build a lineup with 1K DeAndre Jordan, 1K. I don't know why TJ Warren's not in the rotation, but I think he should be playing. He's an option. Terrence Ross is another 1K option. And non-zero chance we see some Reggie Jackson in this series if there's some sort of foul trouble in the point guard position for Denver.
Yeah, and I'm looking through some of the just exposures I have. In the lineups I built, the cheap player I got the most exposure to is Landry Shamet. And it's not because I view Shamet as being some, all-world play on this slate. We have him projected for 4 fantasy points. That's Stokastic right now. But the reason that he makes sense is he just gives you the flexibility to be able to roster the studs in this game. And that's kind of important. So I like getting to Landry Shamet at, by the way, relatively modest ownership. He's projected for less than 20% ownership. Could Shamet get a rotation, hit a 3 or 2? I think that's possible. that could be enough to make him optimal on a slate where there's a lot of studs to get to.
No, I think, Shamit could be. It's going to be interesting. Is it going to be a Shamit series? Is it going to be a campaign series? Campaign's just a tiny dude where I think once he's on the court, Jamal Murray might just hunt him. Bruce Brown might hunt him. And I think he might just get played off the court. But one thing that campaign has going for you, we know when he's given minutes, he's chucking the ball. Those are the type of guys you kind of want to play at that type of price tag, especially in a DraftKings Showdown format.
And the next question here is from Einsteinium. He says, Michael Porter Jr. or Booker in the captain on DK today? I mean, if cost is not prohibitive, then the answer is Devin Booker. All things being considered, I like Michael Porter Jr. as a contrarian option. But if you're just telling me 1v1 Booker or MPJ, I'd say build around Booker.
Yeah, build around Booker. To be honest with you, I'm getting identical amounts of them in the captain spot as we speak. So I understand the sentiment from the question there, just because it's a tough choice. I think both you can build really good lineups there, especially in the captain spot when you get that 1.5 multiplier. Booker just has an insane upside compared to Porter Jr. We've seen Booker put up 70 plus fantasy points in the first round. He's just been awesome. And Kevin Durant's playing second fiddle to him just because of how well D-Book has been this series. Keep in mind also, Greg, I don't know if you knew, he's no longer dating Kendall Jenner. So he's a single man. And I'm telling you, the Card Jenner curse is a real thing. So that's why D-Book been hooping.
So here's a question, though. Is that good or bad for his fantasy production?
I think it's good. I think it's good. As long as, like, if the Nuggets really want to get in his head, they should start playing Bad Bunny during, like, commercial timeouts and, like, a halftime, like, intro. Just got to, like, get in his head a little bit. And then I think Book might have a bad game.
All right. There we go. You heard it from Ryan. If you want to know, because Ryan, who really is not just a guru of DFS, but he knows the social lives of all these players better than they know themselves often. And Ryan can tell the players who they should or who they shouldn't be dating. And then he'll be able to tell how it's going to impact their fantasy performances. You heard it from Ryan. Go after Devin Booker today because he's now a single man out on the prowl. Maybe trying to impress some girls that are sitting courtside, a la Jordan Poole in the playoffs last year. That's the last time Jordan Poole was good, is when there was some attractive girls sitting courtside. It's actually the only time Jordan Poole is good. Super chat from James Magruder. Highest projected player for captain on DK, Nikola Jokic. My highest projected lineups have Jokic. He's going to be the most popular player. I understand why. And if you're just looking for, like, cash option, who you think is going to be the highest scoring player, who projects the best in lineups, that's Jokic in the captain spot. Any difference of opinion from yourself?
No, I think you nailed it right there. I just wanted to make sure my mic wasn't muffled. There's a member in the chat who thought my mic was muffled. Yeah, Jokic, like you said, we just know the upside he's carrying. It's just insane. I also think the most under-owned captain might be Kevin Durant. Sorry to go off topic here, but just as I build through this, Kevin Durant just also has an insane upside. And I think he's going to come in a little bit under-owned.
Not only does he have a massive upside, he's going to play a ton of minutes. Like, we've seen that from him in the playoffs. The Suns have had no issues going out and playing this guy 43, 44 minutes. So that's also something that definitely unlocks his absolute ceiling. Next question that we have in Discord. This one is coming from Legalize. So, of course, it is a very important question. He wants to know chicken fingers or meatballs. That is meatballs for me.
Chicken fingers for me.
All right.
Specifically from Dave's Hot Chicken, what I think is by far one of the best hot chicken places out there. As producer Jacob agrees with me, Dave's Hot by a mile. So, yeah, go get some chicken fingers from Dave's Hot, and hopefully you'll thank me later.
So my mom makes, oh, by the way, Fernando Tatis and Manny Machado back-to-back home runs. Somebody just said.
God.
This is the single greatest baseball game ever played.
Greg might retire tonight. This might be Greg's final show for Stokastic. So we might as well celebrate he is just cashing all the checks left and right.
Yeah, this is just an absolute incredible baseball game. Play games on the moon. Just go for it. Why? I mean, if you're already doing this, why not play on the moon as well? Next,
I think this is great for baseball. More runs, more scoring. I think that's what brought the NBA back to life, and they're doing whatever they can in baseball. Hopefully this is something that sticks around.
I mean, maybe within reason, this game looks like it's going to be like a 20-15 game. That might be a little bit excessive, but yeah, I mean, for betting purposes, this is really fun, especially when DraftKings doesn't know when the game is being played or where the game is being played, and they open up. There are going to be potentially more home runs in this game than just what the total that DraftKings opened this as. 8.5. The total is 8.5. I think we're going to get more than 9 home runs in this game based on how it's going so far. But more questions. We've got one here from Einstein. He wants to know thoughts on Cam Payne today. I really don't know what to make of Cam Payne. He's been banged up. We haven't seen him play all that much recently. I don't know what his minutes are going to look like. Do you have any firm takes on Cam Payne? I just don't know how anybody could be confident in him.
Yeah, let's talk about his range of outcomes, right? Yeah. So we haven't seen Cam Payne at all. The first time we saw Cam Payne was in the second half of the Clippers game, his first game back from injury. Cam Payne, I think those minutes can go anywhere from honestly being out of the rotation to if he's going to play 20 minutes, I'll be shocked. I want to say a safe reason. Anywhere from 0 to 12 minutes is what I think Cam Payne's going to play. And I think with that, such a wide range of outcomes there, he's going to project anywhere from 0 to upwards of, I don't know, 18, 19 fantasy points. Depends on how efficient he is in those minutes. So he just makes for an excellent tournament play. The reason why he's not getting much ownership is partly because we just don't know what those minutes look like. He could be out of the rotation to playing anywhere to a dozen minutes to 15 minutes seems like kind of the ceiling in terms of a game one perspective for Cam Payne, I think.
I think the right way to talk about it, like you said, is the range of outcomes. Because if you ask me how many minutes is Cam Payne playing, how good is he going to look in those minutes, I just don't know how we know. There's just no way to know. He's not played significant minutes in a really long time. He was in the rotation last game and played 3 minutes. I know what the upside is for him, but I also know the floor is really low. So I think he's a good tournament option, but just understand there's a lot of risk involved.
And as crazy as it sounds, if you want to go into the Chris Paul gets hurt in a playoff situation, I mean, it happens every year. So Cam Payne is going to look glorious in that case. But with that being said, D-Book can carry the ball up and they can play Shaman at the 2. There's so many ways that I think Cam Payne just being hurt towards the end of the season is the reason why we didn't see him, obviously, in the first round. And the range of outcomes is really, really widespread from 0 to 16. It is for a lot of bench guys in a game one setting. Like, I think we're all basing this off of what we saw in round 1. And both coaches are really good coaches where I expect them to make some sort of rotational adjustment. More so on the Phoenix side than the Denver side of things. I feel pretty confident that Denver's going to stick to that 3-man bench of Christian Braun, Bruce Brown, and Jeff Green. I don't think we'll see anyone really else, barring anything unforeseen from the Denver side of things.
Got another question in here. Just a follow up from Trouble 35, who says, no bet works. Appreciate the wisdom. Yeah, sometimes Trouble 35, especially if you're trying to maximize your EV, you don't have to bet all of the lines on every single game. You don't have to go out and find a ladder for every game. If you want to do it recreationally from time to time, cool. No issues with that, but understand that sometimes the optimal bet could be a bet that you do not place. The next question is from JEW. He wants to know, favorite cheap DK captains to get more higher end guys, or is this a bad strategy? I have no issues with it at all. And in fact, some of my best showdown wins have come from punting a captain and just going with somebody who's really contrarian and puts me on a different build. And then also, if you get this guy who comes off the bench and maybe scores 20 fantasy points, it really unlocks a lot of potential in your lineups. If you had to pick one punt play to roll with the captain tonight, Ryan, who would be the guy you go with?
Punt play at captain tonight. How far down do we have to go?
I'll leave it up to your discretion. Whatever you would feel most comfortable with as a cheap punt option.
Bruce Brown Jr. I think Bruce Brown Jr. has a pathway, as ridiculous as it sounds, playing 33 minutes, 34 minutes of Bruce Brown, just because a shorter rotation for Denver. I think Bruce Brown has a pathway of stealing minutes from Porter Jr. from Porter playing bad defense. So give me Bruce Brown Jr. as a cheap captain option over there on DraftKings.
I'm going to go with Cam Payne. We just talked about before the range of outcomes. That's kind of what I like from cheap guys who I'm going to play him a captain. I want a really, really low. I want the floor to be 0 where nobody wants to play him, but I want there to be an actual ceiling there, which we have with Cam Payne. So I think that he's worth taking a chance on large field tournaments. Nobody is going to be clicking that button. If we look at our ownership projections right now, let's see, where do we have him? Campaign is projected for, I don't know if you have it in front of you. What would you guess his ownership projection is in the captain spot, Ryan?
I want to say sub 3%.
0%. It is so low that we have it lower than 0.1 here.
Yeah, so it's not going to take much to get above the field. So I'm not sure if I buy into the campaign as much as you are, Greg, but
But I'm not bought into it at all, by the way. I'm just talking about same thing you had mentioned before. You brought up range of outcomes. I know there's a ceiling there. I know it's not likely, but I know it's possibly there and nobody is clicking that button. You get campaign come off the bench for this game. By the way, he might not even be in the rotation. I can't even guarantee you he's going to get minutes. But there is an opportunity for campaign to be the first guard off the bench for Phoenix, for him to go out and score 18, 20 fantasy points if all goes right for him. In that kind of scenario, you've got a very different looking lineup for a guy who's literally projected for 0% ownership right now at the captain spot.
No, you nailed it. And I think those are the type of things that puts you in first place. And say an NBA Showdown contest over there in DraftKings, low on captain spots. And then keep in mind, you still have to get everything else right the rest of the way. So that's one thing you got to make sure of.
It also, by the way, not only a good way to come in first place, it's a good way to come in last place, which for top heavy payout structures where there's a lot of duped lineups, it's a risk that I don't really mind taking. The next question.
You know what's hilarious? This just happened right now. So my door is unlocked and I think someone just walked in thinking this was someone else's apartment.
Was it at least an attractive girl?
I couldn't tell because the lights are glaring in my face. So I have no idea who just walked into this apartment.
When I was in college, my freshman year, and it was dorm set up where, just big dorm, a lot of guys living in close quarters. That happened where one of my friends had left his door unlocked at night and a drunk guy came into his room and just went into his bed and fell asleep next to him. And he tried to wake him up and then they got into a fight over whose dorm room it was.
Yeah. So I wish I had like a ring set up. So it would have been fun to see who just walked in, but it is what it is. That's why I probably looked a little startled there for about 20 seconds.
Yeah, that would. I have the ring set up in my house, and I do use it to spy on people who are coming in and out of the house. You never know what's going on. Next question that we have in here is from Basti G. He wants to know, what value options do we have the most exposure to? It is tough to fit in the studs on DK. So getting closer to lock here, Ryan. It's locking in 12 minutes. Just overall, large field tournaments, who are the value plays just in general that you get the most exposure to for cheap?
Over there on DraftKings, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, over there in DraftKings, in terms of value guys, I'm getting Bruce Brown, some Landry Shamet as well. I sprinkled in some of the 1K players just to jam in a studs lineup, jamming in extra stud and sacrificing a guy who might not be in the rotation. I'm willing to do that on this slate like this today, especially in a game one where rotations are uncertain. But yeah, it's mainly Bruce Brown, Landry Shamet are the cheap guys who I'm getting to. Not getting much of Torrey Craig, not getting much of Bismack Biyombo or Jeff Green, the way things stand right now. Getting some of them, not too much so.
Yeah, for me, once again, kind of depends how cheap we're talking about, but Landry Shamet, now that he's starting, I do think Okogie is a sensible, cheap play. Bruce Brown being another one. Those are the three that for large field tournaments I get the most exposure to overall. The next question here comes from Einsteinium. He wants to know, are we more comfortable playing Jeff Green or Campaign as a cheap guy? More comfortable? The answer is Jeff Green. If we're just talking about comfort, but I don't think comfort is always the best way to play tournaments that are this high variance.
No, I agree with you. And regardless, in terms of the range of outcomes here as well, just going back to what we were touching on earlier, I just think Campaign just has a higher upside with even the uncertainty of him not being in the rotation. We know what Jeff Green is. He's there kind of to do what Josh Okogie does, but at a modified level. That's just what Jeff Green's role is over there in Denver.
And I think this is a really good question from Almost Made. Just left us a super chat. He said, Ryan, do you recommend always leaving money on the table for showdown contests?
I don't recommend always leaving money on the showdown contest. There are many times where the random 1K player, if you nail it right, can pan out for you where you spend up all your money and it works out just fine. So I don't always recommend it. I think that's the quickest way of getting contrarian on a DFS showdown slate over there on DraftKings is leaving money, even on FanDuel. But I don't recommend always do it. I still think you can build solid lineups that use up all of $50,000 on DraftKings that are still low owned and still project to be potentially not duped as much as well.
We got a good comment in here. And by the way, almost made. I would say it depends how contrarian your lineup is. Like if you have campaign at the captain spot, you don't have to leave salary on the table. If you're playing Jokic in the captain spot, chances are, and this is just a blanket rule, this is not going to apply to every single situation, but if you're playing somebody like Jokic, who is the most popular captain on the slate, it's going to be very difficult to build contrarian lineups if you're using all of the salary. Got a follow up here from Pete Vile. By the way, Peter last night, a hubro on DraftKings, took down 100K. So congrats to a hubro. Peter Vile's in the chat right now. He said Rinpack about to get murdered live on the show, which I don't want that to happen to Ryan. I do have a quick story about this though, because we were doing a show about a year ago where I was doing a show with Eric and he was at a friend's house and his friend just walked in the room while we were doing the show with a piece of toast and just put it in his mouth while he was talking to feed him. And here's the difference. If I saw somebody walk behind Ryan on a show, I would be like, hey, Ryan, heads up. There's a potential murderer behind you. When it happened to Eric and I thought he might have gotten killed and somebody was approached behind him, my first thought was, well, this is going to be good content. This is going to be good content when everybody gets to see Eric get taken out live on the air. So it kind of goes, I think everybody has different roles around here. And that's where, Ryan, to me, I'd really be like, we have to protect Ryan at all costs. Eric, though, everything's an opportunity for content. And it's like if somebody sneaks in the back door and just comes out and, maybe slices his neck on camera, it would be really good for the views on the YouTube channel. I think Eric would be up for it also to help out the channel because he's always a team player. But anyway, thank you for the comment, Peter.
I just want to go back to you on that. I just think it would suck to get murdered from right in front. I think if I had a choice, I would just get murdered from the back without knowing that's coming for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the phrasing there could be taken out of context there and make it sound not great, but I hear you. I understand where you're coming from. Once again, play on words. Another question here in our Discord chat. This one is from Swaz. He is saying Ayton and Okogie or Michael Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown on FanDuel. So this is a 2v2. And on one side, Ayton and Okogie. On the other side, Michael Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown. Between those two combinations, Ryan, do you have a lean?
Could you repeat the latter half again? Sorry.
The first one is DeAndre Ayton and Josh Okogie. The second one is Michael Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown.
Ayton and Okogie, just because I think they project for more minutes, and it's very close. I think I'm gonna backtrack there. I'm gonna go back to Porter Jr. and Bruce Brown Jr.
Yeah, I don't think either of those are bad combinations, and I know it seems.
I also need to know what the rest of your lineup looks like.
Yeah,
too.
it's always, especially for a 1-game slate, right? It's always hard, but I don't think either of those combinations are egregious, right? There's nobody in there I look at, it's like, oh, you can't play that combination or can't play players together or anything like that. But I think either of them you're fine with. Like, there's nothing there I'd say you have to run away from it. As far as other questions go, it looks like we have everything answered right now. But we've only got about 5 minutes left to go here, Ryan. And I want to go back to talking about FanDuel because we haven't really talked about it in a minute. And we talked about the pro and the star spots because we got that super chat from Michael McKinney at the top of the show. MVP, we talked about Jokic overall being the best option. He's the cash game play. He's also going to be super popular. If you had to get contrarian at MVP, we haven't talked about this yet. Who is your favorite contrarian MVP play on FanDuel?
Contrarian MVP play on FanDuel. It's going to be Jamal Murray. Sorry. Yeah. I'm getting equal amounts of Booker, Kevin Durant, and Jamal Murray. So pick your poison, one of those three. I think I'll go with Kevin Durant. I think he's going to be the lowest owned of the bunch of those three guys, Booker, KD, and Murray.
So we have, by the way, I'll just read off our ownership projections. We got an update not too long ago for FanDuel and for DraftKings as well. Our current MVP ownerships, I'm actually a little surprised that Durant is now more popular I mean, that Booker is now more popular than Durant for the MVP on FanDuel. It's Jokic 1. That's no surprise. Then Booker at 23%, Durant at 19%, Jamal Murray at 12%, Chris Paul 6%, Ayton at 1%, then everybody else well below that. Considering those are the most updated ownerships, does that change who you answer as who your answer be for favorite contrarian MVP on FanDuel?
No, I think those three guys project so close in terms of just projection, and the range of outcomes are also very similar. So I'm willing to like rotate those three guys around. But I think everyone pretty much building tonight is going to think Jokic is eons ahead of everybody. And maybe Jokic comes in a bit overowned, but highly unlikely. He's just square on, just the best MVP play. We're getting the most of him, the way things stand right now. So we'll see how much above the field I end up getting if I do at all. But I just think you can jump a lot of the field. If Jokic has a flat game, he certainly can. And we've seen guys like Booker and KD just have monster games.
One final thing I want to ask you before we close out. If you had to pick one player to get into foul trouble, right? Just kind of playing into different game situations and how a bench player who's maybe not picking up ownership could maybe benefit. If you had to pick one player to get into foul trouble, who would it be? And who's the backup who would benefit in that scenario?
Who's the backup that would benefit in that scenario in terms of like a starter not getting enough minutes, you think?
Yeah, just a starter fouls out, picks up 2 fouls early in the game, maybe it's 3 fouls early in the second quarter. The team goes to the bench early because a core guy is in foul trouble. Who would that player be? And who's the backup? I just kind of think it's an interesting talking point here to close.
Yeah, I think it's Bruce Brown Jr. just because I think the way they're operating at a shorter bench, like a shorter rotation so far, I feel more confident it stays like that for Denver in terms of like just having those three guys off the bench. So it's going to be Bruce Brown Jr. for me. I think there are multiple ways. I think he enters the lineup if Aaron Gordon, KCP, Michael Porter Jr., one of those guys gets in foul trouble. There's a good chance he's coming in, or Jeff Green. I think Christian Braun is playing third fiddle to those guys, and it's Bruce Brown Jr. for me one, and then Jeff Green. It's going to be one of the Denver guys more than the Phoenix guys.
No, that makes a whole lot of sense. And I also like, because you gave a pretty quick answer there, because I know it's not something that you were able to put a lot of thought into before I asked you that question. It kind of came out of left field. But I do think it's an interesting way you answered, because you answered somebody who has multiple outs to get that extended playing time, where there's multiple players who get into foul trouble that would ultimately end up benefiting Bruce Brown. And yes, people are pointing out in the chat now, Jake Swell saying Michael Porter Jr., Malukar saying KCP. Yeah, either of those guys get into foul trouble. And I do think it's Bruce Brown who's going to come up the bench and end up picking up some extra minutes. So for an hour for a 1-game slate, this went fairly quickly, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to Prize Picks again for sponsoring the show. If you guys haven't signed up.
Who's going to win? Greg, who's going to win this series and in how many games?
So my pick is going to be Denver, but my rooting interest is the Phoenix Suns because of our futures bets.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Suns in 6, and our poll came out Suns 51%, Nuggets 48%. I wonder what happened to that other percent.
It got lost. It got lost in the mix. Nobody knows. What 1% of the people voted for Eric to win, I guess. So that's where there's some sympathy votes in there. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you didn't do it, one more time, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're signing up for Prize Picks, use the link below in the description box. It can get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a great time watching the game tonight. Later, everybody.